Hello, hello, hello. It's me, Michelle, your host and Pocket DJ of Coffee Fueled Stories. And we have two very special guests today. We have Candace Nola and Paul Carro. And we are going to be talking about some awesome stuff. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Paul to talk about the new anthology that he and Candace are working on. Hi,
All right.
Paul.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you. And just being Memorial Day weekend, just wanted to thank you for your service, by the way. So, we're very excited about this. This is a project that I've been thinking about for a while. It's a um, anthology that is designed to recognize the best of self-published horror in a given year, and the inaugural year will be 2025. We'll talk about guidelines later. We want people to know they have to submit stories from this year, not from last year. The book will come out next year in 2026. But basically, what it was is there's a barrier to entry in publishing that goes beyond you know doing things proper and having proper editing and all of that. I'm not saying self-publishing you know um, is where it can be for everybody, but it tends to be an avenue that some really amazing talent out in the world has access to. But getting noticed in that world and getting respect in that world is a very difficult thing. And I just thought a book like this will give some lift to people that have done the same hard work that traditional published authors or small independent press authors have done. And I do think it's also just a way to get people that love horror in this case, because it's a horror anthology, to see some new voices. Because I have noticed in recent years, one thing is that once upon a time there was anthologies that were exciting and had some fresh blood, so to speak. It is horror after all. But recently you're starting to see a recycling of the same names over and over again. And while I love many of those authors, I don't want the same ones like crashing into the same anthology every time. It's got the same voice, it's got the same feel, and I'm a huge anthology person. It's my first love over novels. And so to me, that was kind of my, you know, reason for wanting to do this, is to really give an avenue and recognition for some amazing, amazing voices out there that just maybe aren't being heard. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's just the overview that I'd like to share right now. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how did you and Candace, how did this collaboration come about? That's like the biggest, that's literally my first question. I'm like, okay, I've talked to Candace and I've talked with you, Paul, and I know your guys' different styles, but I want to know, how did this collaboration come about?
Well, if I can keep going 1 second, Candace, and then I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah,
But no, Candace is just amazing. I've, I say when we talk about giving voices to people, I think Candace is one of the ones in the industry that lifts more people probably than anyone I can think of, honestly, off the top of my head. There's a handful of people out there that do the heavy lifting for others, not just for themselves. And Candace is one of them. And so I've long had her on my radar. And then I started reading her books as well and love her books. And so she interviewed me early on in my publishing career, because that's what she does. And I appreciate you so much, Candace. And we just kind of became, I look, this happened. It's like we kind of consider each other friends and we've never met. This is actually our first time meeting in person, kind of actually. So when I thought of this idea, I just thought of someone else that I feel has real strength in anthologies and like cover design and a lot of talents that, this isn't something I wanted to do alone necessarily, because it's going to be a lot of work behind something like this, and we're testing the waters. Hopefully this is annual. We don't know. We're going to see how this goes, but but it literally, she was the first person I thought of. And so I did reach out. I waited till I kind of had the idea roughly a little more formed and a little more thought out. And then I approached Candace, and the skies opened above me, and she said yes. And I became a very happy person. And she's been doing, let's see, far more work than I have so far, but my part's coming up. So anyway, but I'll let you say from your end, Candace. So yeah.
Um, that's pretty much the story. Um, he just reached out and was like, "Hey, I got an idea for you." And it's like, "Okay, let me think about it." And it's Paul that I've known for since I think we may have started in the industry around the same time, like 2019-ish.
Hmm.
All right.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like we've been kind of walking along the same pathways. And so he was one of those that I like watch a lot and that I've come to kind of know. And I think that he means well and that he has a good heart for this space like me. And it sounded interesting, kind of fun, and a challenge because it had an open call. I was like, I don't really do open calls because I do invite only with mine, and that has a lot to do with just me and the time that I don't have. So I do invite only. So I was like, well, I thought, well, it would be a lot of work, but I also agree with him as to the writers in this space. There are so many that deserve to be heard, and they're just not. They're not being heard enough. They're not being seen enough. And yeah, there's a few every year that kind of break through to that like upper tier and maybe go on to the New York folks and big publishers out there. And that's great. But out of those, maybe what, three or four every year or so, there are literally hundreds of us out here that are really good at what we do, really passionate about what we do. And yeah, unfortunately, self-publishing does have that sort of like stigma. But unless a few of us start to take steps to change it, it's never going to change. And I thought, well, this might be a really good way to actually shine that light on those of us that are out here that really do need to be seen because there's just so much talent out here and people are just not aware of it. So I was all in, and here we are.
I I love that. And Paul, I totally agree with you. Candace, you do so much. So the fact that like you and I, like Paul, you and I are like Candace. So it's awesome to be able to direct some light onto Candace and be like, oh. So you had mentioned two words that I kind of would, I think the audience kind of needs to know in regard to open call versus invite only. But I think that's kind of something to kind of clarify regarding anthologies. Yes, that's kind of like the importance of anthologies, invite only versus open call. Yes,
Mhm.
Candace, would you like to kind of
Yeah.
direct a little light on that, please?
Invite only just strictly means that the editor, or in my case, the publisher and editor, only invites the folks that they want in the book. That's it. There are no, hey, anyone can read about this book being made and, send me a story. It's, I don't tell anyone about it. I don't do any public, I don't publicize don't publicize it up front. I just kind of hang out, watch, and make a list of who I might want in the next one. And then come late winter or so of the year that we are in, I make that list. I go through and I usually have a list about 15 to 18 folks. I narrow it down to 12. I kind of pick what I want the next antho to be, and I email them and say, hey, do you want in on the next one? This is the theme, this is what I need, and here's the time frame. If all 12 of those folks are a yes, then I'm done. I have my 12 and that is it. I usually have a smaller list of 3 or 4 more in case somebody says no, or later on somebody needs to drop off. But that just means that I invited you. No one else has any chance of being put in this anthology because you strictly were not invited. It's just, and it's really, with me, it only comes down to I don't have the time to read through hundreds and hundreds of stories and submissions and all of that because I do so many other things and I also have a job and everything else. So I really do want to produce the anthologies every year that I'm known for, but it just has to be in invite because I know those folks, I know their work, I know what I'm going to have in the end. And I know that I don't have to deal with a whole bunch of different personalities and things like that, as well as I don't have to read through hundreds and hundreds of stories. When you do an open call, it is literally open to any author in the industry that wants to submit a story for that theme. I can get an email from someone who's been in the industry for 20 years. I can get an email from someone that started last month. And the stories can be pretty much anything. You never know what you're going to get. You don't know the quality of their work yet. You know nothing about them. And you also don't know about their character, their personality. You have nothing to go off of except here's a story. It can be a lot of pros, it can be a lot of cons with that because, again, you have to look at all parts of it. It's not really just about reading the story and, oh, this is great. It's, okay, does it fit the theme that we want? Did they follow the guidelines? Is it within the word count? Did they stick to what we want and what we don't want? And then from there, you have to look a little bit past that story as well, because you do want to know a little bit about the people you're going to ultimately put in the anthology as well. Because if you end up with a problematic personality or person, and there's unfortunately, some sort of a blow up or scandal or something, that's going to reflect on the publisher, the editor, the anthologer, like that can throw everybody like off the rails, and publicity for that project's going to tank because you have one person that you didn't bother looking into to kind of check to make sure that, there were no glaring issues that you might be concerned about. So when you do an open call, it's just a lot more work on the back end for both the editor and the publisher as well. Not to mention all the stories that you have to wade through to even narrow it down to a list. And then you need to look at all of those other things and then compile your final list from there. And then, of course, you got to send out all those rejections, which is always hard to do because, if it's a good story, no one wants to reject a really good story. And it's always the worst part. But then again, you might have had 5 that are all along the same lines, and you got to pick the best one of those and then reject the other 4. It doesn't mean they weren't good. It just means someone else sort of got to the idea first and executed it, a little bit better than they did. So it's just a whole lot of work that I don't think a lot of folks really are aware of when you take on an open call like that. So there you go.
Thank you. That makes sense. So, Paul, I'm going to ask you a difficult question here. So now this is between you and Candace. So let's say hypothetically, and I don't know if this has happened yet, because obviously you guys are just starting, but if it comes down to Paul, you're like, I really, 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 really want this story in. And Candace, you're like, no, I don't think it fits. Like, how are you guys going to decide? What are you guys going to do? Like flip the coin, like who's gonna say, I think we should I think we should have this in here. Like, how have you guys, did you guys talk about like if you come to this difficult road and you're like, okay, I really want this author, really want this story, and the other one's like, I don't. Like, have you guys discussed how you're going to quote reject a story or author?
Yeah, we've talked a bit about that. Candace won't be handling the reading part in general, so she's going to be exposed to a more narrow, set of stories at some point than I am. But she's got a team that is going to potentially step in if we're trying to decide between a couple of things, and we're going to kind of try to go that avenue. We are, by the way, reading blind, and that was one of the things I suggested up front. Horror Writers Association did an anthology, Daring Scaring Adventures, which I think is out now or coming out soon. Eric J. Gignard, and he's awesome. And the thing is, when you have an organization like HWA, you've got 50 million writers and you're supposed to represent them all. But let's be real, they have their favorites. And so, therefore, they would have them in an anthology like that potentially if they had their others. And so, in this case, they decided to do a blind one. And I was shortlisted and made it almost all the way in. And I have no, I turned it into my own book, so I made money. I'm good. But I thought that was a good way to make sure that other voices were heard. Um, they did have some invite people in there, so they did half and half. But that's where we're at is I think reading blind is going to just be like first we isolate down to the stories, and then from there we kind of look at a certain amount at the end because we do have to look beyond just the story too. At some point, we then do have to kind of make sure that the individuals involved are, like I said, non problematic. That's going to have to be part of this at some point. Um, but the only other thing is, I'd say Candace is the boss, and I defer to her. So at the end, it'll probably be that. So
Yeah, so I basically won't be involved in reading any of the stories or making my opinion known until the very, very end. Only because one, I'm going to know right up front who everyone is and what everyone's story is, because I have to take the story, make sure that they didn't put anything on it that will let him know who they are, send him the story blind from there, and I'm gonna wait until the absolute end in case he does need me to break a tie or a vote. Because also, once we're almost what, a year in, 10, 11 months in, let's be honest, I'm not going to remember any single one of these stories that I'm reading right now. I may remember like the last few, but I'm going to wait until all the way until then, because that way, if I do have to vote on one, it's going to be almost like I'm reading it new and fresh, and I'm just going to read it as I'm also blind, because I may recognize the story, but I'm not going to remember who submitted it at that point. So that's the only way that I'm going to actually help with like which ones to choose. And also because I know so many people in the industry and so many people that are going to submit, I did not want to do that whole, oh, Candace, by the way, no, 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 no. I can do nothing for you except send your story over to Paul, and that is it. I am publishing it, and then my review team has agreed to kind of step in and help him read and wade through things and vote on things and all of that. So some of the team will be involved, but we're also not going to let you know who, for that very same reason. We don't want anyone slammed with a whole bunch of, hey, do me a favor. No. So
I
we'll
love
see
that
how
you,
it works.
that's awesome. Thank you. I love that the blind reading is like where it's at. Like I have learned so much about the anthology process just talking to you because prior to this I was like, oh, anthologies, how cool is that? It seems like it's a really fun project. And as you guys are talking, I was like, there's no way I would ever try to tackle that by myself. Kudos to you both. Kudos.
Yes,
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
can say one thing just to add though. So I did used to read. So I used to read for screenplay festivals and for a studio. So when I first started in LA back in the day, it's how I made money. They paid me $30 to $50 a script. You had a very tight structure. You had to literally, read the script and then add in, you know, in every slot they had, this bit of information, this bit of information, this bit of information, and at the end there's a checkbox, pass. Had different ones that you had to choose at the end, and you were upfront kind of limited to. They're like, look, we only expect to see this many come through from you. If we're seeing more than that, then you're not the right reader for us. And it was horrible in a way because I'm reading so many good things and I can only pass so many forward. Um, but at the same time, I know they've got the same screenplay out at 50 other places. I'm not, so good for them. But so I'm used to the mass readings like this. And I think about like a holiday weekend like this. The one thing I will say, by the way, to screenwriters out there trying to do the screenwriting competitions, all of that, I've got a little rewriting process that I do called the two-page rewrite. And, you can get style on books. You can get it on TikTok. You can get it at YouTube, anywhere. Um, and then there are others that say, format doesn't matter. Just write a good story. Well, I can tell you right now, the studio heads are not reading it. The executives are not reading it. The producers are not reading it. Someone straight out of college like me is reading them. And if I got to read, 20 scripts on a holiday weekend, because we don't get holidays off, boy, if it can be a cleaner read, you've got a leg up. So I've often offered my friends, and I'll offer to, any here, listening to this or watching this, that, if you want to send me 2 pages of a script as I have time, I can do that quick edit for you and just show you a way to make your work a little more attractive to someone that's reading 20 scripts at once, because they're not reading just yours, just so you know. They're reading a lot at that weekend. So but anyway, so I feel like I'm ready for um, reading a lot. And then the second part was I did have to step away from my from my mentorships at HWA. That part pains me a little because my last two mentees were amazing. They're still amazing, sorry. And I'm going to continue working with those two till they finish their books. But I'm not taking on someone new this year because I do know the workload is going to be pretty heavy. So.
All right. So you guys have explained about your anthology, the details behind it, the open call. So, and then the tiebreaker. I love the way that the process that you guys are going about your anthology. So, the questions that I have for you, a few more questions about the book. So, the cover art for this anthology. Can you guys give us a little bit of background about that particular cover?
Yeah. So Paul had asked me what I had thought as far as an artist and who I would like to use. And I just so happened to name the one person that he also happened to have in mind. And we were like, all right, cool. And then he was like, basically, you guys can go ahead and do what you want. Just, I've seen yours. I know what his work is, and it's great. So, just have at it. And we went with Dawn Noble. Sorry, I'm stuttering now. Of Rooster Republic. They are a very small independent pr press, but they also do a lot of artwork. Namely, he does most of the artwork. And I've been working with him probably since 2020. And he actually does all the artwork for my own anthos and a lot of my own work. And I approached him and I was like, hey, we got this plan. What do you think of this? And he was like, do you have any clue what you want to do? And you guys are probably going to laugh at me. And I'm going to be like, no, I don't. I don't have any idea. So have at it. And he's very used to how I think because I can't explain visuals to him, which is weird. You think you're an author, you're very descriptive and very wordy. You can describe things beautifully. But when it comes to trying to visualize what I want to cover, I go blank. I go completely blank because I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things. We could do this, that, and the other. And then I get lost in like all the options. And I was like, you know what? I trust you and I've been working with you for years. Why don't you come up with something and then we'll kind of tweak it from there? Because while as as bad as I am at explaining what I want, when I see what I want, I know it. Like it hits me and I'm like, that's it. So we were talking and talking and talking, and we're trying to like talk this thing out. We're brainstorming this one night on the phone. And then we were looking at the proposal that Paul sent over, and it says self scares, and it's a play on words, because you have that whole self care in there, which another little odd note about that. I guess a lot of folks also thought the theme of the stories had to be like based on self-care, but it's not. It was a play on the self-publishing aspect. But Dawn and I both kind of stumbled across that play on words and kind of had the same idea at the same time. And I was like, but what if we played on that whole self-care sort of thing in there, and I was like, what about a lady in a bathtub, like reading a book, but yet, it's just all wrong. Like there's just something wildly off about this whole thing. And so it sort of plays into that whole self-care. But once you add the S in there, it's the whole self-scares. Of course, the cover is horrific. And the self-care kind of points at the self-publishing rather than actual self-care stories. It's not what it's about. It's just horror stories. And he came up with the lady in the bathtub looking that particular way. And when he showed it to me, I was horrified and appalled. And I was like, no, that's nightmare fuel. But I knew that it was like spot on. She's just in there and she's got her book there, and the book she has is like the skull on it. And then the rest of it is just so visually striking that I was like, don't change anything. It's great. And we sent it over to Paul, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, yeah, it's great.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's funny. If I can add one thing, sorry, Michelle, if I
Yeah,
can add
no,
one
please.
thing to that, just funny story on top of that. So, because it was on this podcast, Mia Culpa here for me, when tech comes out, I'm a new toy, new tech kind of guy, and like to jump on stuff early. I like to beta on things, and didn't fully understand what AI was when that was coming out. And so, we had released one of my anthologies with some AI artwork and quickly as I learned more about what that really was all about, we republished the book and took all of that out like almost immediately at great expense. But um, so that that was just a real wrong direction to go, and I didn't fully understand all of that. So since then, I've actually learned even more, and I'm even more against it on principle. So I have started doing a series of interviews with non-AI cover artists, and these are all free, by the way. I don't do I don't get anything from them. I don't get affiliate links. I don't even get discounts on book covers, but it was just really funny because I had just released Dawn's interview like right around the time that I was approaching Candace. I want to say it was something like less than 2 whole weeks from the time I kind of met him and got to know him a little bit and released his interview that suddenly we're turning around and hiring him. And I just thought that was a little bit of kismet as well. And I reached out to him afterwards and not only said bravo for the cover, but like who knew? Like here it is a week later, and we're working together. So I just thought that was kind of fun.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing stories like that because then like you at that point you really know, like you said, the sky is parting and planets are aligning, things are happening. So that's I love hearing stories like that. So that's really cool. And I love the interviews that you do with the non-AI cover art as well. And I too have a mea culpa kind of I don't want to call it relationship or experience, but same thing. Like when it first came out, I was playing on the apps and I did things like I wanted to see at the time my logo had fire coming out of the coffee cup and I wanted to see what AI, did with that. I thought, how cool is that? Because I can't draw that kind of stuff. And so I played with it. I saved a few of the images and then, forgot about them. And then of course and AI is actually a topic that I did want to discuss with you guys. So this is perfect.
Yeah.
And but I never did anything with those images. Like I completely forgot about them. And then, AI, like it did. It went off on this, completely different sphere, if you will. And it's not to say that AI doesn't serve its purposes for, various reasons. However, I totally like I am 100% like this is a writing nugget that we're dropping major writing nuggets here. Writing 100% human created 100 like I'm all about that. I'm all for it. I support it 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was going to be like, do you have in the submission guidelines literally does it say in like all caps with exclamation marks, absolutely no AI?
Yeah, it's right on the website on the Anthology page. Absolutely no AI generated content will be tolerated. It's in there. It's on several of the posts, I think, as well. Yeah, so absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, we could probably just have a show on like anti-AI writing on. So we're
Yeah,
just gonna
yeah.
we're just gonna move on to the next topic.
Mhm.
So, I wanted to ask you, Paul. You also are now part of the Memento Mori Inc. magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you talk about that? Can you share anything about that, or is that like I don't want you to get in trouble, but I'm very happy and excited to see what you are writing, and I hope that you can talk about it without getting in trouble.
Yeah, I can talk about, I can talk around it a little
Okay.
bit. First off, I'm very, very excited. I mean, it's a cool magazine. I already, I think it was only two issues in by the time I came on board because it's, relatively new.
Mhm.
And I happen to be one of the writers that really influenced me and has done one of my favorite short horror stories is Joe R. Lansdale, and like there's an interview with him in number 10. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is, you know, definitely my magazine. And so to suddenly get an opportunity, Lisa Vasquez reached out to me and kind of suggested testing the waters on something, and we did. I don't know 100% if I'll be in the summer slasher issue. I did submit something, but I was literally getting hired like within 24 hours of the submission deadline. Um, so I did a fun article for that, but it wouldn't become what are you going to do as a column? My thing just fit into that specific theme at that moment. So we did finally decide last week on a column that's very specific to where I live and kind of another part of the country. And I can't say too much about that, but we have decided on the column on what the column title is, and that part's going to be a lot of fun. And I was out speaking of the non-AI stuff. It's we're probably going to want a header for the article. And because of where I live, I'm at a place where I can take the actual photos. We don't have to purchase the photos, and I'm not going to AI the photos. So I was actually out there last week taking a ton of photos, and I just got to connect with Lisa about creating the header for my upcoming column. But I'm really excited about the column, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I've written in different formats before, except poetry. Bow down to those that can do that. It's out of my wheelhouse. But for me to do this kind of work is very fulfilling because I'm all about the horror genre and supernatural and some other stuff. And this is a great way to speak about it without just doing fiction. So, but I can't really say the title of the column yet. That'll all will be revealed soon. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I look forward to it. And then a question for both of you. Are either of you or both of you going to be at Scares That Cares next year in yeah. So are you gonna have a booth? You gonna have a booth there?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm hoping to attend. My plan is to attend. I won't be I wanted to do a podcast out there, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna have fun. So I'm looking forward to meeting everyone in person. So I'm super excited. This is gonna be my first one.
Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well,
I will be there as both me and as the publishing house as well. So there'll be quite a few of us there that are associated with me, and the team and the website and a bunch of my authors have already confirmed they're going to be there. So yeah.
very cool. Well, I'm planning on taking pictures with everybody. So I really would I'm looking forward to a picture with you. So that's gonna be
Awesome.
awesome. Yay. Uh
Fantastic.
yeah, I'll have a cup of coffee. We'll cheers some coffee.
I'm sure I'll have some.
Right? I know, I'll probably walking around with the coffee as well. So real quick, I want to make sure that I don't forget. I know I had my questions, but did we hit every topic that you guys wanted to address regarding the anthology, cover art, things of that nature before we get too far off tangent and talk about various other things? I want to make sure that because this talk today is specifically about the anthology that you guys that your little passion project that I'm so looking forward to. So I want to make sure we don't miss anything regarding that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just have one thing. Um, so I was, excited. I had an art interview with me come out this week and last week, sorry, in LA Voyage magazine. So here in LA, and we talk about this project. But it also brought back some memories because we were talking about it's the theme of the interview was kind of inspirational stories and how you got where you got to in the industry. And part of my thing was so, and I've talked about this, I think, even on your podcast, is that in fifth grade, I was published in an anthology with Stephen King. It was literally just an anthology of main authors. And so, trust me when I say, some people say they wanted to write at a young age. Obviously, I was writing at a young age. It was an assignment for the class, but my teacher, Mrs. Wise, a wonderful, wonderful teacher, she just submitted the story because she really thought it was a great story. Now, at that age and with parents who are a little out of their depth financially and on this kind of thing, she just simply submitted the story to whatever that open call was. It got accepted. Um, and I was in the anthology at a ridiculously young age. And it was not a horror theme. It was just a main author. So I'm sure the pool of submissions was much, much smaller. We're not a heavily populated state. But my point was that individual was one that gave someone like myself who grew up in poverty, who didn't have the opportunities that some other people may have, or even a way to get the knowledge. I mean, when you even talk about, well, just look it up on the internet, people don't have the internet. Internet's expensive. There are people out there that don't have those resources. And so in my mind, she became a resource for me that stepped up and helped. And, I consider Candace someone like that has stepped up and helped so many. And that's what I want this book to do is to at least give a chance out there. And it is going to have to be timing for people. If you don't self-publish this year, then you can't be part of it. Sorry, there has to be some, restrictions in there. But at its heart is I want everyone to know this is your chance to participate in something like this because you can self-publish and it's just more financially available to some people than others. Um, but we're a resource that can maybe help you, that you did the one thing. This is maybe your way to finally get noticed. And I submitted, by the way, to, because for Stokers every year I am a voting member. And, I have submitted some self-published and, didn't even make the list, the reading list. And that has always bothered me. And it was the best thing I had read that entire year, full stop. Okay, from a certain individual, and she's still writing, and I'm happy to see, and she at least made the reading list the second year. So maybe like someone noticed her from, submitting her the year before. I don't know, but so I guess my point is, you even had your guest on, the president of the HWA, who mentioned there was only been five, self-published nominations at the Stokers in the history of the Stokers, and um, people have a lot of issues, with any organization. Okay, I happen to love it. I'm in it for a reason. It was a dream of mine. But I will argue that they've got to open the field a bit. And to me, to hear only five people have been nominated, it's almost all poetry. Um, sorry, there's some great work out there, and people just are not getting to see it. So that's why I'm urging everyone that does self-publish, put your collection out this year and then take one of those stories and submit it to us. You have avenues where you can publish a single story and submit it to us. We're here now. You've got all year, get your stuff out there, get it published, and so that we can take a look at it. So, and look at the guidelines first, so that what you are working on can be submitted, because we do financially, we have to limit to a certain amount of words because we are a paying market. We are paying these people. So, but that's all probably I have left to say about that and my reasons behind it. So,
I love it. Oh, sorry, please, Candace.
I just want to add, please, please, please read the guidelines, please. They are listed on the posts that we make. The link is right there. It'll take you directly to the anthology page on my website, where all the guidelines that you need are there. And it has to be published in 2025. You have to publish the story on your own in a collection or as a standalone available story in 2025. I don't want to say how many stories I've had to unfortunately reject just in the last 2 weeks because no one read the guidelines. It's in the title of the anthology, The Best of 2025 Self-Published Horror. It has to be from 2025.
yeah, and if I could just add to that real quick, it's like, we couldn't go backwards in time because I've already read everything last year, or I've read too much last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I thought about doing this project, it's like, yeah, I can't like try to say, let's do one for things that came out last year, because both Candace and myself probably read half of those things. It's not blind anymore. It's a whole different animal. We had to start fresh, if we were going to do something like this and keep our eyeballs off the normal avenues and the normal things we might be reading. And on purpose this year, I had it in my radar that I wanted to do this. So I actually stopped reading a lot this year until I solidified whether I was going to do this or not. Because I do read a lot of self-published, and I have some authors out there that I really enjoy their work, and I read their stuff regularly. But I did have to back off from my reading this year. So, and I'm glad I did, because things came together, and so that's good. So,
Yeah.
That's awesome. What I was going to add to that was that you guys are giving a voice to the unheard, if you will, like you said, the self-published. And self-published, I love that you guys are, fighting for the little guy. I love it. I'm all about, helping the underdog, supporting the underdog, cheering for the underdog. I self-published before I reached out to a publisher. So I know the pain points about self-publishing. I understand everything you guys like. I can relate. I call it my little punk rock baby. I did I did so much wrong, and I'm proud of it. There's no like I'm proud, but now I did find some help. I did get some help, but I do understand, so and I do have a piece, so I can't come to you guys because now that piece is it's in a book with the publisher, and I would love to have it in there. So I don't know, maybe I better get writing and publish something so that I can submit, and you guys won't know because it'll be blind. So you guys won't know my stuff. That being said, I want to say thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for explaining this project. Thank you for, again, fighting for the little guy. Thank you for supporting, the horror community. I think what's really cool is like this little trifecta right here. I know we do so much to support and help others. And so I think I kind of needed this today because I was feeling, um, I don't want to say deflated, maybe more frustrated. And I felt like I was kind of I don't know, maybe like help me out here, guys. I'm stuck on words. I feel like I was sharing and fighting and supporting and doing all of these things, and like nobody was like hearing it. I felt like I'm preaching to the choir, you know. So
Screaming through the void a little bit.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
No one's listening.
yes.
Yeah, it can feel like that a lot. I think both of you know that it's been a rough week or so with me, and um, I reach I reach that point a lot where it's like I do all of this stuff and I try to do all of this stuff, but there are definitely some times where it feels like you're just sort of screaming into the void and no one's listening, or the opposite, and then you get somebody that wants to like personally attack you, or someone who's like just being ungrateful or something. And it's like, it's one of those things that you have to really love this in order to continue. Because when you look at either side of that, it's almost like you feel like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. No matter what you do or how much you do or how little of one side or the other you do. And it can become very frustrating and very disheartening, but I don't do it for the praise from anyone. I do this because I just truly love in the industry. I love what I do. I love to read above all else, and I took it upon myself to try to help everyone else that I can because others stood up and helped me when I started. And that is it. It's not about the praise or the glory or anything else. There's a lot of really great folks out here that deserve to be heard. I'm gonna make this part of what I do, and that's it. But you do kind of have to learn how to turn the other cheek, I guess, and just you need other reasons to do what you do. It can't be about, oh, you just want people to say thank you or be grateful, because at the end of the day, none of that matters, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, and if I could say, Michelle, too, just and I would just ask people too to try to support, like I said, people like Candace and her website that does so much for people. And I'm going to talk about another thing I'm attending later this year in a second because it's similar to what we're trying to do here. Is like, when this comes out, try to support it. It's how you decide there's going to be a part two, a part three, a part four. We already know just in publishing, just traditionally it's anthologies are not as financially profitable as novels, and I can say that from my own work. It's like the house is just since 2018, it's just boom, boom, boom. Everyone reads. Anthologies are a little bit different, and for me, it's the love of anthologies got me in the door, but then when you want to do, but I have other anthologies I can do separate, like my coffee anthology, which will move forward. So when something like this comes along, where it's actually designed to lift some voices and showcase some new talent, I just would urge people to really try to support this. Though even little things like when we publish this list and you see certain authors tag a self-published author they know to say, "Hey, are you seeing this?" That's a great way to get more people, to sign up for this. And then, I would say, just in horror in general and saying like yourself in podcasting, I am going to be on a panel on September 20th. So at the LA Convention Center, it's the LA Horror Con. So I know I don't make too many, appearances. I do a handful. I tend to do them at the bigger horror conventions. So I will be on a panel there on page to screen. It's an HWA panel, actually. I got a bunch of our HWA members together. So it's a film festival that's taking place. And so it's called Night Frights LA. And I would urge anyone that does short films to really look at this one. Submission window, though, may be closing or closed. I hope it's not. But if it is, then you jump on for next year. But I would ask people to really support this one, buy the tickets for this one, because same thing, they're a nonprofit. I know the people behind this, and they've been putting a ton of work into this, and they are trying to come up with a way on this particular film festival to have not only the winners, which will be screened at this beautiful theater. It's a gorgeous theater. I've already seen it. Um, and we're going to do our presentation in between the winners throughout the day, kind of break up the film screenings, and then it'll be an hour of the HWA in there somewhere. They're also doing a Killer Clowns from Outer Space screening with the person who did the music for it. So it's going to be a great festival. It's hosted by Rue Morgue and hosted by LA HorrorCon. But my point is, they're trying to find a way that even the movies that didn't win can get showcased on their website, or mentioned in some way. So the problem is, even when you want to open these doors, you have limited amount of slots, and that's the hard part. But what I like about what the Winchester Brothers filmmakers are doing with this film festival is they're trying to find ways that even if you weren't the winner, but you did submit to us, and there's a bit of a cost related to that, what can we do for you? And so they're trying to feature some of those filmmakers outside of even just the festival. So I'm pretty excited, and I think people should check that out. And then Candace and I have talked a little bit. We haven't finalized it, but we had talked about, the opposite of Ellen Datlow, who does so much in the front of her yearly anthologies, and I love her stuff. I've been reading her stuff for years, her anthologies, but something at the end that kind of highlights some of the names to be names to look out for. Some format like that, that even those that didn't get in these ones, really, these stories were pretty spectacular, and maybe keep an eye on some of those authors too. So, but I would just say at the end of the day, support, websites like Candace, podcasts like yours, those that do so much for the genre. And I would ask everybody the same of self scares. So that's my soapbox. Sorry. So
It's okay. I love it. I think there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, that's why we're all here. And like I said, I think I really needed this today. I really needed you guys, like, because, screaming into the void, sometimes it's nice to know that it does scream back, and it's with two lovely people. So it was perfect. I think it was meant, again, talk about kismet. Uh, so on that note, I do believe we hit everything. Yes?
mhm.
Awesome. So, you guys both know the way that we end the show is go forth and be magical. But I'm adding a new tagline about write your heart out.
Okay. Go forth and be magical and write your heart